Now, Mr. Fry for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are here today to provide transparency, finally, to the American people. 7 years ago, the FBI launched Crossfire Hurricane, the left's brazen attempt to keep Donald Trump out of the White House. This federal investigation, funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign, caused Americans to believe that then-candidate Trump was colluding with Russia in order to win the 2016 presidential election. Mr. Durham has spent 4 years investigating this, 480 witnesses, 6 million pages of documents, 190 subpoenas, and executing 7 search warrants. Less than a month ago, he completed this report that instigated a baseless investigation and launched a partisan attack on President Trump, despite having no true justification to do this. That was the FBI. Within 3 days of receiving the information from a diplomat in Australia, the FBI opened a full-fledged investigation into the Trump campaign. So, Mr. Durham, let's get into this. The FBI opened up Crossfire Hurricane without speaking to the people who provided the initial information. Is that true?
That's correct.
The FBI opened Crossfire Hurricane on a Sunday, only 3 days after reviewing that information. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So just think about that for a moment. An investigation, a full investigation into a presidential campaign over a weekend. Mr. Durham, the FBI opened Crossfire Hurricane without interviewing any of the essential witnesses. Is that true?
That's true.
And the FBI also opened up Crossfire Hurricane without using any of the standard analytical tools typically employed to evaluate that evidence. Is that true?
That's true.
So think about that. The FBI never talked to the people who gave them the intelligence information. They never examined their own witnesses. They never interviewed the witnesses. They never corroborated the dossier. Mr. Durham, if the FBI had done these things, if they had done their homework, would it have found that its own Russian experts had no information about President Trump being involved with Russian leadership or Russian intelligence officials?
Yes.
So then, was there adequate predication for the FBI to open Crossfire Hurricane as a full investigation?
On July 31st, in my view, based on our investigation, there was not a legitimate basis to open as a full investigation. An assessment is something that had to be looked at, gather information, such as interviewing the people who provided the Papadopoulos information, checking their own databases, the databases of other intelligence agencies, and the standard kinds of things that you would do in an investigation like this.
Mr. Durham, I think it's safe to conclude, based on that report and anyone who has read it, that they did not have that adequate basis, as you talked about, to launch this investigation. Let's move on to a second really troubling aspect of your findings. From the report, I gathered that key FBI leaders, all the way at the top, were predisposed to go after candidate Trump. This bias likely affected the conduct of FBI personnel in this investigation. Is that true?
Yes.
Can you describe that for a moment? How did confirmation bias play into this?
Confirmation bias, as was alluded to, has to do with our human tendency to accept things that we already think are true and to reject anything else. In this instance, there are any number of significant red flags that were raised that were simply ignored. If there's evidence that was inconsistent with the narrative, they didn't pay attention to it. They didn't explore it. They didn't take the logical investigative steps that should have been taken.
Let's see how real this bias was. FBI Deputy Assistant Director Peter Strzok drafted and approved the Crossfire Hurricane opening communication. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And in your investigation, your office discovered text messages between Strzok and Lisa Page, who was the special assistant to the FBI Director McCabe, expressing strong bias against candidate Trump.
That's true.
For the record, let me read aloud. This was generated by staff, but this would look like their text messages. On August 18, 2016, Page texted Strzok, "Trump's not going to become president, right? Right?" And Strzok responded by saying, no, he's not. We'll stop it. It's clear that there was no evidence of Russia collusion with the Trump campaign in 2016. The American people deserve the truth, and I'm proud to serve on this committee to uncover these lies that were perpetuated for far too long. With that, Mr. Chairman, with my remaining 30 seconds, I will yield to you.
Take the chairman yielding back. We'll wait for my time. We'll now recognize the gentlelady from.
Be useful. Thank you. Thanks, Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Whitehouse. Senator Grassley.
You testified before the Senate Intelligence Committee that the Richmond Field Office anti-Catholic memo was, quote, a product by one field office, end of quote. You testified before the House Judiciary Committee that the memo was, quote, a single product of a single field office, end quote. But the Richmond memo says 2 other field offices of the FBI were involved and that that information had been redacted in versions provided to the Congress. Why did the FBI redact that critical information? And second, did you review the unredacted version before giving your previous testimony?
So, Senator, I think that this notion that other field offices were involved is a garble, and let me explain why I say that. The only involvement of the 2 other field offices was the Richmond authors of the product included 2 sentences or something or thereabouts referencing each of these other offices' cases, and they sent those sentences about the other offices' cases to them, not the whole product, and asked them, hey, did we describe your case right? That's all the other offices had. So it was a single field office's product, and I stand by that.
Did you review the unredacted memo before giving your previous testimony?
I have reviewed the unredacted memo. Exactly when I reviewed it, I can't as I sit here right now, tell you.
Okay. In July of this year, I made public what's now known as the Biden family 1023 FBI document. I've also written you several letters that about the same, mostly recently, I think October 24th. That letter of October said in part that the confidential human source in the Biden family, 1023, was not connected to known sources of Russian information. That confidential human source is also reportedly a high-paid, long-running FBI source that the FBI has used in many investigative matters. According to former Attorney General Bill Barr, Barr said that 1023 was deemed sufficiently credible for further investigation. On May 31st of this year, Chairman Comer and I had a call with you. On that call, you told us that the Biden family 23 is related to an ongoing investigative matter. Now, very clearly, these data points show indicators of credibility. This question for you, this FBI 1023 was serialized on June 30th, 2020, over 3 years ago. When were you first made aware of 1023?
Well, I don't know that I could give you the exact date, but I can tell you that that I learned of the 1023 much more recently than anything around 2020, that's for sure.
This is a public document. You have an obligation to tell this committee what you knew about it, when you knew about it, and if you can't give us that information, I guess I better go on. Are there additional FBI-generated 1023s that reference a bribery scheme involving the Biden family, and if so, how many and what are their dates?
Well, Senator, now you're asking questions that relate directly to Special Counsel Weiss's ongoing investigation, and respectfully, I can't really discuss anything related to that investigation. I would refer you to him for that.
The 1023 references alleged text, financial records, and audio tapes that prove some sort of scheme involving money with Biden people. These are discrete documents that can be obtained if they exist when a high-paid, long-used federal confidential human source provides the FBI with evidence that different types of records exist that prove a crime involving a political official. Then standard FBI practice is to take steps to obtain that evidence. Would you agree with that, what I've said so far about the FBI policy? And if not, why not?
Well, certainly I would expect people to do appropriate follow-up on anything in a 1023, but obviously every one of those instances is very fact-specific and case-specific, case-dependent.
Okay, that answer's okay. So then, based upon what you just told me, did the FBI seek these records in this matter?
Well, let me separate into two different things here. When it comes to the investigation being led by Special Counsel Weiss, which is being supported by our Baltimore field office, that one I'm not going to be able to discuss because it's an ongoing investigation. When it comes to the assessment that occurred in being run out of the office of our field office in Pittsburgh, and the U.S. Attorney, Mr. Brady, as selected by Attorney General Barr to look at all of this back in the earlier period you're talking about, my understanding is that there was agreement among the team about what steps needed to be taken and with the closing of that assessment.
Have you communicated with White House officials or used a third party to do so about anything relating to the 1023 as it involves people in the Biden family? And if so, who and when?
No.
Okay. I want to go to sexual misconduct by the FBI. On October the 5th, 2022, I sent you a letter and later made FBI records public that showed widespread sexual misconduct in FBI against females. The data also showed that hundreds of FBI personnel retired to avoid discipline and that senior high-level officials received reduced punishment, if any at all. On October the 6th, the FBI told the Associated Press that it intended to respond to me first and declined to provide sexual misconduct data to the press at that time. It's over 1 year later, and the FBI has failed to provide this data to me. The FBI's blatant lack of action indicates it isn't taking misconduct against women in the workplace seriously. Why has the FBI failed to provide that very important data to this committee? And when will it finally be produced, as you told the FBI told the Associated Press you were going to?
Well, first let me say I could not disagree more strongly that we don't take it seriously. I can tell you I take misconduct, sexual misconduct against our own employees extremely seriously, and we've put in place all sorts of new procedures and policies to deal with that and to communicate in no uncertain terms how strongly I feel about that. As to the responsiveness to your letter, let me follow up with my team and find out where that stands. But I do want to make sure that there's not any confusion, none, about how seriously I take this topic.
Okay, then where's the data, if that's what you're going to be willing to take it so seriously?
I will follow up. I will follow up with you about your letter.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Grassley. Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much.
Không đi tìm người yêu lý tưởng đâu anh, em không đi tìm người yêu tuyệt đối đâu anh, em không đi tìm người yêu nhan sắc mỹ miều, người yêu đai các cao sang lụa lá gấm hoa vàng son. Em không đi tìm người yêu đôi trắng thay đen, em không đi tìm người yêu say đắm xa hoa, em không đi tìm người yêu cao quý ngọc ngà lầu cao xe các anh ơi, có gì vẫn luôn vững bền. Anh ơi, em tìm người yêu chung thủy, em rằng ở đời ai không muốn đẹp giàu và cao sang, vì em nghèo đâu dám mơ. Anh ơi em tìm người yêu không ước mơ cao, anh ơi em tìm người yêu thương mái tranh xiêu. Mai đây cho dù rằng đời góc bế chân trời, cuộc đời bão táp phong ba, suốt đời có nhau bên mình. Không đi tìm người yêu lý tưởng đâu anh, em không đi tìm người yêu tuyệt đối đâu anh, em không đi tìm người yêu nhan sắc mỹ miều, người yêu đai các cao sang, lụa lá gấm hoa vàng son. Em không đi tìm người yêu đôi trắng thay đen, em không đi tìm người yêu say đắm xa hoa, em không đi tìm người yêu cao quý ngọc ngà, lầu cao xe các anh ơi, có gì vẫn luôn vững bền. Anh ơi em tìm người yêu chung thủy, em tìm người yêu trong mơ, dẫu nghèo nguyện không đổi lòng. Anh ơi biết rằng ở đời ai không muốn đẹp giàu và cao sang, vì em nghèo đâu dám mơ. Anh ơi em tìm người yêu không ước mơ cao, anh ơi em tìm người yêu thương mái tranh xiêu. Mai đây cho dù rằng đời góc bế chân trời, cuộc đời bão táp phong ba, suốt đời có nhau bên mình. Mai đây cho dù rằng đời góc bế chân trời, cuộc đời bão táp